Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I have no doubt that over the next month in Canadian politics, we're going to be stuck in a bit of a liberal honeymoon period for a bit. It doesn't matter that Mark Carney was never elected to be prime minister and he's been effectively installed. There is a type of Canadian who's going to think, wow, the liberal government feels very fresh now. We have a new prime minister. Let's just think nice things about him because that's the nice thing to do. The thing is that I think that the main attack on Mark Carney is not going to be over the carbon tax like some conservatives are still trying to do. Mark Carney has effectively taken that off the table. Yes, is he going to basically replace it with another version of the carbon tax? Obviously. But rhetorically, it's harder to go after him on the consumer carbon tax when he's like reorganizing the carbon tax to be on big polluters or somebody else. And the conservatives really haven't ramped up any rhetoric to go after them on something like that. I think the main hit on Mark Carney is that he's effectively going to give you a couple little gimmies on getting rid of the carbon tax and maybe changing a couple other things about the way government works. But for the most part, it's all going to stay the same until after the election. And then Mark Carney is going to go full force on all the crazy radical things that he said in previous interviews with the UN, the WEF, and other radical organizations. This, I think, was one of the best attacks that Pierre Poilievre made yesterday in his sort of reaction press conference to Mark Carney swearing in, going after him for not just being an unelected prime minister, but having the whole liberal leadership race looking really suspicious that he has no mandate. And so everything he's doing right now is effectively trying to buy off Canadians.
First of all, Mr. Carney has no mandate. He has not been elected by the Canadian people. He's been installed by the Liberal establishment and Justin Trudeau's insiders. They prevented people from debating him. They've been hiding from the media because every time he answers questions, he gets caught in lies or says incredibly idiotic things. As for the Liberal leadership result, those numbers are either just pathetically low because Canadians did not want to vote for a weak, conflicted Mark Carney who had sold out the country by moving jobs and money out of Canada, or they show something more suspicious. But unfortunately,
And Ezra Vant has done a lot of work on that. So, like he's about to say he's not going to get into that. But I think more people should look into the liberal leadership race. And that should be a big marketing point of either the Conservative Party or third party, more conservative type advertisers going after the liberals. That Mark Carney he didn't even win a leadership race. It wasn't a real leadership race. And then it just comes down to, was it not a real leadership race because effectively no one was really competing against them? I think that's already been proven. You could just tell from looking at the other camps, they would never lay a glove on Mark Carney the entire time. And then the only thing I would add in addition to that was the actual numbers rigged as well. Because it seems kind of implausible that in a riding like University Rosedale, Chrystia Freeland's riding, she's held it since 2015. She's been a minister. She's been the deputy prime minister. Somehow she only gets 11% of the vote in her own riding. Now, remember too that the average percentage she got over all the ridings was 8. So she barely did any better in her home riding compared to like Nunavut or Edmonton Center or like what is it, Burnaby North Seymour. How is that even possible? Same thing with Karina Gould, who is also a sitting MP. Her riding of Burlington, I think she barely did any better than she did on average. I think it was even like to the point where it's just margin of error that she did only slightly better. How is it also that Karina Gould almost gets the same percentage of the vote on average that Frank Baylis got? Frank Baylis, who was completely invisible the entire campaign, and Karina Gould, who was being celebrated by the media as being a new, fresh face. And maybe the Liberals should look into making her leader, even though the whole leadership was nonsense and she was never going to be able to have the chance to become leader. How is she literally getting 3% and Frank Baylis also gets 3%? And then again, you have like Chrystia Freeland only getting 8. That's ridiculous. And so I think this is an underrated attack angle that the Liberals have basically fraudulently installed this guy into office, and they're willing to do things like get rid of the carbon tax temporarily in order so that this guy can get a full 4-year term and do all the crazy stuff he's been talking about in interviews for a decade.
Fortunately, I don't have all the details. All I can say is that is a very small number of people that voted in the Liberal leadership race, much smaller than in ours. We excited people because people thought this is a chance to bring home the Canada that we knew and still love, where you can work hard and have a great life, where you can afford a home, and where seniors can put food on their tables, where our streets are safe. That's one of the reasons why I was blessed to receive the biggest number of votes of any leadership candidate in Canadian history that I'm aware of. Thank you.
And that's the funny thing too, is that like Carney, even with the Liberal Party basically packing votes for the guy, he got less than half of what Pierre Poilievre got in 2022. And you could say, well, the Conservative leadership went on longer. There's a longer time to sign people up. Sure, but you also had to pay $15 for a Conservative membership. What do you have to pay for a Liberal membership? And by the way, when Poilievre mentioned that Mark Carney has a trouble with the truth and he constantly tells stupid lies in his in any press conference he has or any statement that he makes, he is not lying. Of course, Mark Carney is the liar. What Mark Carney literally did yesterday is he tried to take a shot at Pierre Poilievre for not getting the security clearance to get the Nisicop report. The reason Poilievre doesn't want it is because if he took it, he couldn't talk about it, which means that getting security clearance is nonsense. He's had to get security clearances before for other committees. He's been on committees where there was top secret information given that was classified and you needed security clearances. The one that for the Nisicop report was like artificially a higher verification of security, but has nothing to do with Poilievre. They would end up interviewing everyone, your grandmother, your dog, in order for you to get the security clearance, which is, kind of sketchy in the sense that everyone in your family is going to have to ask deep personal questions and they get looked into, even though Poilievre has already been looked into himself to the degree that government does. And so would you trust the government to look into your family members when they're trying to beat you in the next election? And they could potentially find dirt on every person that you know and then release that. I think that Poilievre is smart not to take that security clearance. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former NDP leader, has agreed that Poilievre was right about that. But guess what? In the same breath that Mark Carney attacked Poilievre for not taking that security clearance, do you know what he did? He lied. And he said, well, I've had to get security clearances before. I've gotten the Five Eyes security clearance. There is no Five Eyes security clearance. He's just making stuff up. He's never gotten that sort of security clearance. Maybe he's gotten a security clearance when he was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, although he doesn't want to talk about that because he's pretending that he just sprouted up from the ground yesterday and that he's had nothing to do with the government that he's just taken over for. And another good hit on him that Poilievre has made, I have to go pull up my bookmarks here, but Poilievre rightfully pointed out that the problem too is that every single minister and every single person currently connected to Mark Carney's new cabinet was in the previous cabinet. It was in Trudeau's cabinet. So check this out. I think it's a good way of putting it. Wait, do I not have that one? Oh, I think I have the one on the carbon tax, that they just want to implement a new version of the carbon tax. I think I have something for the cabinet on another day then. But here's another point that Poilievre made during the press conference.
Carbon tax Carney will try later today to pull another fast one. This one's going to be very sneaky, very sneaky. I call it the carbon tax con job. I told you this was going to happen, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. He's going to hide the consumer carbon tax for 60 days. And if he's reelected, he'll bring it back bigger than ever with no rebate. Let's be clear. He says that the carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a, quote, shadow carbon tax. And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more. But here's what I've got. This is the Liberal carbon tax law. This law cannot be eliminated unless Parliament resumes.
I don't need to keep this going here, but he is right. What Carney has done by eliminating the carbon tax is just signing some sort of an order in council where it says the carbon tax rate is now 0. So the law is still there and it could be ramped up later, but basically Carney is just saying, trust me, I'm not going to bring it back. I still think that this is not the best hit on the Liberals. They should be going after them for things they're currently doing wrong rather than things they've technically done right, but they could always reverse later. I think it's always smarter to go after things that they've been doing wrong now. And I think what the Conservatives need is a really big, audacious policy to run on that takes attention away from Mark Carney, lowering immigration to 125,000 a year. Like absolutely slashing taxes. Like, say I want to reduce the amount of taxes being paid on the federal level in this country by 20% in my first 4-year term. You would have tons of people saying, like, way better than anything Carney's offering. He just got rid of the carbon tax temporarily, but this guy is going to get rid of it permanently, lower corporate taxes, lower income taxes, and wipe out a bunch of other stupid government surcharges. And so I just want to show you now, guys, this new advertisement the Conservatives have released. Not that I just want to go over any things that Conservatives are saying today, but I think it's important to actually go over what their current marketing is. I think this, and this is something that CBC Watcher posted on X, this is what they're now currently releasing on legacy media channels. And I actually do think it's a decent angle. This is a decent way of running advertisements right now in the Carney era. Don't be too critical. You can be critical. You should be attacking a lot. But the thing is, I think that this should be the boilerplate message you then play in advertisements that's more positive.
Binds us together is the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street, wrapped in the protective arms of a solid border defended by brave soldiers under a proud flag. To preserve that flag and its promise, we must work together, fight together, and win together. That is what it means to put Canada first.
I think it's a good advertisement. I think they're doing a good job. Do you know who's not doing a good job right now? Subtle transition. It's just Jagmeet Singh. The man doesn't know what he wants to do right now. I think he wants the election in October, and he's really trying to campaign for that. The problem is that as he keeps running away from the next election, his votes keep like draining away from him. And in fact, as Conservatives, if we're trying to cheer on somebody right now, we should be cheering on Jagmeet Singh that he eventually gets a brain. Because if he is this bad at politics, he will be giving over so many votes over to the Liberals. This is Jagmeet Singh now begging Mark Carney to work with him to pass legislation to delay the next election effectively. Not legislation to delay the next election, but he wants to work with Carney in the legislature, or in the House of Commons, in order to just kind of buy time for Jagmeet because he is not prepared for the next election.
Mr. Singh, you mentioned that you want to pass supports for workers. Would you be willing to work with the Carney government to stay in power even after March 24th?
Right now, only 40% of workers are covered by the current EI. They don't have protection. So I want to see those measures put in place. We can make that happen rapidly. We also need an economic plan to create jobs in our own country. I want to see that plan passed first and an election afterwards.
If it takes more time to get that plan, if it takes more time to get that plan in place, would you be open to cutting a deal with the Carney government to work through to get that plan after March?
Well, yeah, it's going to take time to get that. If that pushes the election back a bit, that's fine. For me, the priority is to get this stuff done first, and then we go to an election. If it takes more time to put in place protections for workers, to put in place an economic plan to create jobs for workers, yeah, I'm prepared to have a bit more time to get that done for workers, and then we go to an election.
The funny thing is, I've been seeing people posting NDP advertisements that are playing on YouTube and on Facebook, and they're not that bad in the sense that I don't like the NDP. I'm a conservative. Same time, it's so funny that they're actually putting out decently good quality ads, but then they have this guy leading them who just gives you, please don't call an election energy at all times. You're going to lose if you don't want to face an election. If you don't want to face an election, you're going to get it, and you're going to get absolutely stomped because of it. Here is actually the clip I wanted to play earlier because it's Mark Carney reacting to the fact that most of his people in the current cabinet are just Trudeau's people.
Speaking of your cabinet, the front line of your cabinet and the vast majority of your cabinet were all ministers during Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's time. How does this represent change?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is this first thing, smaller cabinet, more focused on action. Everybody in this cabinet is senior. Everybody in this cabinet is senior. So I don't accept the front line and the implication that there's a front line and another line. The second thing is one of the
He's just bad on camera. This is the one subtle thing about Mark Carney that you can tell that will do badly in the next election, that he doesn't work well when he's being asked questions he's not prepared for.
Top issues, of course, is the crisis with respect to the United States and the opportunity with respect to trade diversification. So keeping together those individuals who have been on, and now I'm going to use your term, the front line, but the front line in a commercial battle, keeping together those individuals so that we are seamlessly addressing these issues and seizing the opportunities was very important to us, and that's reflected in the cabinet. But of course, it's reflected fundamentally in their capabilities, which are here for them.
It's just like gobbledygook. And again, it's not that you kind of do need a somewhat generic answer to this, that's saying, oh, no, it doesn't really matter. The thing is that we're focused on the right things now. He just couldn't say that, though. And that's the problem for Mark Carney, is he's just kind of stiff and weird. And I think that the one thing he did that was smart with the cabinet, so I'll always say the plus and the negatives. The negatives is that he's terrible at marketing what he's trying to do right now, and everyone kind of knows that the vast majority of the Trudeau-era policies are going to continue. The one smart thing he did was he eliminated a lot of ministries that more conservative people don't like, more conservative liberals who have been moving over to the conservatives. So he's gotten rid of the Women and Gender Equality Ministry. He's gotten rid of the Ministry of Labor. He's gotten rid of the Ministry of, like, I think, Climate Change, and he's just renamed it like Environment. He's done a lot of things in order to kind of pare down the cabinet. That's smart. Do I think that that's actually reflective of how Mark Carney is as a man? No, the man is a big government economic controller. The man loves bureaucracy, but he understands right now if he wants to get elected, he's going to have to pretend to be the free market guy, even though when he was the central banker of the UK, that he was like an absolute nightmare to work with, because he was basically trying to threaten the UK government into passing regulations, into passing different like bureaucratic nonsense when he was the Bank of England manager, because he is effectively, I guess, what you would call an economic planner. That is how the guy works. He does not want to cut taxes. He does not want to cut regulations. His carbon tax is the one little red herring he's throwing out there. I really doubt he cuts taxes in any other way, and that's just going to be the way he's pretending that he takes the free market seriously. But yeah, that should be it for me today, guys. I hope the Conservatives in the next few days just start absolutely rolling out tons of videos, tons of content. They just need to swamp the media right now to suck away all the attention that Mark Carney has, and remind Canadians that 90% of everything that's going to be happening with the Carney government is the same thing that Trudeau was doing before, and Mark Carney is probably just trying to get through this next election before he starts really doing what he wants to do, which is not going to be great. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. Like, subscribe, share the video, leave a comment, do all that great stuff, and I'll see you later.